Good afternoon, Tillamook County sports fans. It's time for the World Championship Pig and Ford races. 2018 Tillamook County Fair coming to the close here in just a few hours, but the big event of the fair is yet to come. The stands are packed, lined down both fence lines, and the infield absolutely full as well as we get ready for the 2018 World Championship Pig and Ford race. 2 heat races yet to go before that championship race, and the big story today is the track conditions are terrible, as bad as we've seen, and I've been doing this for, I've been coming to them for about 55 years and have only seen it this bad one other time. They are wet. They canceled the horse racing today, and therefore we're actually on time, which doesn't usually happen on a Saturday either. But the conditions down on the track, the inside part of the track on the straight stretch, near side and far side, is just mud. Down where they let people cross into the infield, they have a tarp, some ground cover. It squishes about 3 inches deep before it hits anything solid. As you walk across there, it's literally just slop on the inside, and you got to pay attention as you're driving these cars today. In fact, talking to the drivers out there before this race, they're very concerned about, number one, the safety of it, and number two, how they're going to get around this track with any speed at all. Now, if you haven't ever seen a Pig and Ford race, that means you haven't been at the Tillamook County Fair, because this is the only place that it ever happened. But the Pig and Ford race itself has stripped down Model T Fords. They run very well. They'll get up to speeds of about 50 miles an hour on a really good hard track. That will not be the case today. The stripped down Model T Fords have just a bench, a little bit of fuel behind and a can. There is no frame on them or anything. They're just like when they came off the line, except they do not have wood spokes anymore. They've changed the wheels to metal spokes, and they certainly are tuned and run very, very well. But today is going to be a challenge. You know, when they're in the pits, they can lift one rear tire and let it just spin. All the pressure goes off the other rear tire. So I don't know exactly what the differential is like in the back of these things or what they're going to be like on mud, but that's what they're going to face. It's interesting because the mud on this track is all near the pits, near the boxes where the pigs are, and there's going to be a learning curve today. The outside of the track, at least in the middle part of the straight stretch, is dry. The inside, not at all. So this should be interesting. Back to what a Pig and Ford race is. You have those stripped-down Model T Fords. They'll line 5 of them across the track, and the drivers will get under or get to the near side fence. And when the gun sounds, they'll run across the track. They'll dig into a box, get one of the pigs that are in the box. These pigs weigh about 35 pounds or so. They'll pick the pig up. They'll run to their car. They have to crank it to get it started. And then they will jump in the car. They have a low gear and a high gear. At times, when the track is really muddy, they have to use low gear more than they want. They don't generate a whole lot of horsepower or a whole lot of horses underneath the hood, which there isn't a hood, in the engine of these. And so today will be interesting as the drivers have to jump in their car. They go around the track. When they get back to the boxes, they will stop, jump out of their car. They have to turn it off. They will drop their pig in the box, get a different pig out of the box, re-crank their T, jump on, get to low gear, shift to high gear, and around they go again. The first one to complete 3 full laps and drop their pig in the box is the winner. We've already had 4 different winners in the 4 heat races so far. On day 1, it was Chris Hurleman and Marty Walker who earned their way into the championship race. Yesterday, it was Ben Salo and Jake Martin. And today, there's 6 other drivers hoping to be part of it. John Hartel comes in onto the track for the first time. My goodness, that is sloppy as he spins around a little bit. Chris Hurleman just spinning and spinning and trying to pick up speed. He's fishtailing as well. It is bad. he finally gets to some dry dirt and can shift it in to high gear. As Marty Walker now trying to find somebody else's track, going, man, I don't know what to do with this. Punk Dunsworth, the president over there, says, I don't know what to tell you. I asked Rick Hurleman if they've ever canceled a race, a Saturday race, and he said, no, not that he knows of. And Rick's been around this game for over 55 years. And so it's been a long, long time as these cars going to take a lap and do it very carefully. Chuck Sanders going to go by in car number 15. John Hartel has made his trip around. You can see the big, deep tracks of every driver who has gone around because of the mud on the track. Jim Martin knows that he's looking to get to the outside, and he does on his practice lap as he runs around. Sorry, that's not Jim. That'd be his dad. That's Jake Martin. As they continue to try to get around. And I'm telling you, Nick Hurleman is just spinning. He may have to get a push to get out of there. Of course, there's no real tread on these tires either, and not a lot of power as they continue to go around. Let's look at the lineup for the first race. Bobby Wasmer draws spot number 1, and normally that's the ideal or the preferred spot closest to the box. But what I will tell you right now is that talking to Bobby beforehand, he said, I don't know that I can even get it going out of spot number 1 once I stop. And so he's going to be inside position, car number 19, the PUD car. And the second spot's going to be Chuck Sanders. Chuck Sanders is driving car number 15, the TLC Federal Credit Union car. In the third spot is going to be John Hartel, and he's going to be right in the thick of the mud there, as John Hartel is in car number 10, the SC Paving car. And then Chris Hurleman will be in the fourth spot. He is in car number 12, the Red Robin car. And then Ben Salo, yesterday's winner, in car number 20, the Ford Motor Company car, the business that actually sponsors this race on FM 95.9 KTIL in Tillamook. 2 heat races today, and I'll tell you, the guys on the outside that have already run are really looking to pick up a win here today as well, so that they don't end up with 6 cars in this championship race, because 6 cars on a track like this, when it's really hard to control, is going to be tough. Bobby Wasmer comes in and sets up and shakes off all the mud. This is going to be something to see, I'll guarantee you. Talked to Rick Hurleman before, and I have a tape of that interview we'll play after the second race before the championship race. And he said, don't be surprised if you see 2 or 3 lead changes in the races today. It will be completely different than we normally see. John Hartel comes up in the third spot. Chris Hurleman out in 4, and then Ben Salo will come up in the 5th spot. He's going to be the only one that has both wheels set in dry dirt to open this race. They spread them a little bit further apart today. Rick Hurleman comes out, talks to his son Chris to tell him what he's seen out there. Chris Hurleman, very experienced in this. He has 18 years of racing in the Pig and Fords. Also seems young yet, although 18 years is a long time of racing. His dad has over 40 years of racing. And these guys have mud caked on their wheels already as they line it up down below and get ready to roll. They spread across the track, going to make final tunes on their cars, and then we will get ready to go as 2 drivers, Bobby Wasmer and Chris Hurleman, come over to the near sideline, and they shake their heads and go, wow, have not seen anything like this before, and this is going to be fun. They line up on the near side. John Hartel, last one. As Ben Salo has a fiance in the stands. They just introduced as well. Yesterday, we had a proposal on the track from track announcer Mike Bentley to Cheryl Spellman. That was great. And the gun is out, and there they go. First one in the box is going to be Ben Salo. He's got a long ways to go, but he's going to be the first one to his car again. John Hartel cranks it over with a left hand, but he falls down. Grabs the pig. He loses it. Digging for it underneath. He gets it. Ben Salo off with a lead. Bobby Wasmer trying to fight for the outside. And finally, Hartel collects that muddy pig as he dives around underneath. Chuck Sanders gets going, and now John Hartel is sitting there spinning as well. John Hartel lost the pig. He went down right as he got to his bench. Leading the race, though, is Ben Salo. Ben Salo with about a 50-yard lead on the backstretch, obviously going way slower than we've ever seen him run this track before. Chris Hurleman a little bit inside, and it looks like he has a little more momentum than Salo does. This is a learning curve for all these drivers trying to figure out where the fastest part of the track is. Chris Hurleman takes a low, and he's going to pass Ben Salo. Chris Hurleman all the way down on the track. We'll have to see which way he approaches the boxes now, if he goes near the box or if he stays wide. It's going to be Chris Hurleman in first. Bobby Wasmer, who's still trying to qualify, is in third. They're fishtailing. Ben Salo almost stopped. Bobby Wasmer gets by him. Chris Hurleman slides in, and he does go way wide. He's going to run all the way across the track. In and out of box number 4 he goes. He'll run all the way back to the outside. Got a long run. Got to turn the crank with the left hand. He gets it over. Bobby Wasmer close, but I don't know that he can get out of that mud hole. Bobby Wasmer now going to turn the crank over. And Ben Salo's going to leave in second, but Chris Hurleman with about a 100-yard lead now as Chuck Sanders in and out. Bobby Wasmer had a hard time getting going as he couldn't get the T cranked over. John Hartel gets his turned over, holds his pig, grabs it, and around they go. Chris Hurleman with the lead. A big lead right now over Ben Salo. Ben learning. He doesn't care a lot about this race. He's already qualified for the championship race. Chris is learning as well, but obviously learning a little bit faster as he has a good lead coming out of the turn of the second lap, just over halfway through the race. Chris Hurleman, the wettest spot is on the first part of this straight stretch down to our left. Hurleman comes across the dry spot. Now he starts fishtailing, fighting it the whole way. He looks over his shoulder, sees there's nobody behind him. He's going to go ahead and go to the middle of the track. There is mud flying off the front of those. No fenders, of course, on this. In and out of box number 4 goes Chris Hurleman. He looks back at Ben Salo, who's coming in. Chris grabs that black and pink pig as Ben Salo going to come to the outside. Ben's taking his goggles off because he can't see out of them. Chris Hurleman just sits there. He's going to have to shift back down to low to try to get the thing going. Bobby Wasmer in third. Bobby will go in and out of the boxes as Ben Salo cranks it over. He'll leave in second. Chris Hurleman, he's got to rev it up to get it going. Bobby Wasmer tries to crank it with his foot. He can't hold on to the crank anymore. He finally gets it turned over with his foot. Have never seen that before either. Bobby Wasmer will leave in third. Chris Hurleman leading the race with half a lap to go. Chuck Sanders, spinning, and John Hartel gets going with some momentum on the outside. They're side by side. In third is Bobby Wasmer. Bobby, I don't believe is going to qualify, and it'll be the first time in many years, we'll try to check that Bobby will not be in the championship race as long as Chris Hurleman is able to slide in here and put his pig down. Yesterday, the winner was in 3 minutes and 6 seconds. Right now, it's 4:20 and counting as Chris Hurleman, his car covered in mud, shakes his head as I haven't seen him that dirty since he played football for me. In he slides to the boxes, turns his car off, sets his pig down. 4 minutes and 37 seconds, and he gets a huge cheer from the crowd as Chris Hurleman has earned his way. I take that back. Has allowed one less car to be in the championship race as Bobby Wasmer hurrying in, and Bobby Wasmer going to slide in spot number 2. Ben Salo's going to be in spot number 3. John Hartel will come in 4th, and Chuck Sanders will be in 5th. We told you it was going to be interesting, and interesting is nothing compared to what we just saw, as the mud is the story of the day. You look at I look at the right hand, the passenger side of the seat of Ben Salo down below us, and it has 2 or 3 inches of mud on it. And he's asking his dad to come out. I think he's gotten some mud in his engine. His dad, if you remember back to day number 1, Ben Salo did not run well, and as they found out later that night, as they worked on it all night, they had 2 coils that went bad on him. He obviously did not run with a lot of power today as well, because he had the lead. And his dad comes out, runs the throttle up. It sounds like it's missing pretty badly down there, as Ben Salo, the defending world champion, has one race to get that thing fixed up, as he will run around on the inside, set himself up, and his dad, Ken Salo, will try to do some work on that before the championship race. Oh, baby. That was not just your everyday pig and Ford race, if there is such a thing. We get ready for the second race. Coming up, Chad Wilson is going to have the inside position. Chad Wilson in car number 16, the E&E body car. We saw that the inside position is not a great place to be. Normally it would be. In the second spot, car number 18, Nick Hurleman, the Shelley Diners car. Outside, or in the middle, is going to be Damon Wayhanger. Damon Wayhanger will be in car number 14, the Tillamook Country Smoker car. In the fourth spot, it's going to be Dylan Walker in car number 13. Dylan Walker, that car's already qualified. Dylan, obviously, has never raced in conditions like this because it's only his third year of racing. And then on the outside, it's going to be Jake Martin. Jake Martin will be in the fifth spot, which, oddly enough, may be the preferred spot today, as it's the only dry spot on the track. Jake Martin in the Pepsi car number 17. Jake, a winner yesterday in the second race. That earns him the outside position as Jake Martin comes fishtailing out of the infield, and he'll find himself a spot to set his car as they get ready for the second race. Oh, man. Nobody had any idea that adding water to the track, actually naturally today, as it rained pretty hard this morning, although not enough to make this that soupy, other than the fact it had been turned up for the horse races, and so that top 4 inches was soft for the horses, and when it got wet, it just turned to absolute mush. They get all 5 cars lined up, so we know there will be no more than 5 cars in the race if one of the inside 3 cars win tonight in this race. Damon Wayhanger sporting the boots. Probably a wise choice in this. I would say football cleats might have been a better idea. But 5 fairly clean cars will not be that way here shortly. Wettest conditions we've seen in at least 30 years for a Pig and Ford race. Certainly adds some intrigue and interest as people are lined 7, 8, 9 deep as far as you can see in either direction. And the stands on the inside are full. They're not letting any more in there. There's people standing along the fence on each side in there as well. The cars have all been set. You can tell how much slower they're running today because yesterday's winning time was 3:07. Today's was 4:37. A minute and a half slower. Half again as slow as it was yesterday. Drivers nervous today. 5 new drivers ready for the second race and a trip to the championship race. Punk has checked all the dials, all the cranks on the front of these cars. He wades himself across. He's going to make sure he can get out of the way, and there's the gun. Chad Wilson's going to be the first one to the box, and he'll be the first one to his car. Long run for Jake Martin. Chad, though, has a hard time getting it going, and it's Dylan Walker leads in first, but Jake Martin has a drier track on the outside, and I think Jake Martin's going to take the lead. Inside guys are spinning their tires, and Damon Wayhanger moves to the outside. He right next to Herleman and right next to Chad Wilson, whose car is smoking like crazy, has that tapped out and spinning. Jake Martin goes all the way to the top of the track. Dylan Walker just inside of him, slides a little higher, and Dylan's found a little faster spot on the track. He's right in behind him. Only about a car length difference between 2 cars that have already qualified, but one driver who's never won a race in the brand new Dylan Walker. Nobody's more nervous than Marty down there right now as he watches Dylan on the back straight stretch going into the final turn of this first lap. And it's Damon Wayhanger running up close in third. Dylan gets high on the track, comes up even to Jake Martin. Jake going to hug the rail coming around. Jake on the inside, Dylan on the outside. Now they get to the wettest part of the track. Dylan fishtailing his way down. Dylan on the outside, but Jake found a little bit of room on the inside. And Dylan, I don't know, he almost stopped. And by him goes Damon Wayhanger. Damon Wayhanger right down the middle of the track. He's in this race. He could earn his way into the championship race. Damon comes out of nowhere, in and out, grabs his pig. As he comes and hits the crank, Damon has finished 5th almost every race he's ever run. And here he is right in the hunt as he sits and spins. Dylan on the outside, Damon in the middle, Jake on the inside, and it's Dylan Walker who takes the lead. He runs it hard and then fishtails coming out of the straight stretch. Jake Martin on the inside and Wayhanger on the outside as all of a sudden a little bit of dry track for Dylan Walker, and he extends his lead to about 100 yards. Dylan Walker on the far side. Leaving in 4th is Chad Wilson, and in 5th is Herleman. It's Dylan Walker now on the far side, about a 100-yard lead on Damon Wayhanger. Damon was in and out to his car first in this second lap, but he just sat there and spun and could not get it going. Dylan slowed down last time he came around. This time he's trying to power through it. Straight down the middle, hanging on to that pig and working the wheel. Back and forth he goes. Damon Wayhanger flew through this part last time with the speed. Jake Martin is taking the outside track this time. Dylan Walker, he's going to move to the inside. I don't know if that's a good choice or not. His dad says, take your time. Be patient. Dylan Walker in and out of box number 4. He turns around and he sees that he's in the lead. Dylan Walker cranks it over. He'll be the first one to leave, but does he have any traction? Damon Wayhanger, he hits the crank. He'll be right with Jake Martin in second. Dylan gets out. He found a pretty good spot on the track as Damon Wayhanger pets his pig, gets in with his boots off, and off he goes. Dylan Walker has a chance to win his first heat race ever. Chad Wilson in and out of the box. He hits the crank. He goes the inside route there, and off he'll go. He's gotten rid of the glasses as well as he fights for the passing lane, moving to the outside. Going to the right, he finds some hard ground. Here comes Nick Herleman in the 5th spot. He locks it down, fighting it the whole way. Nick's a mutter for sure. Dylan Walker moves high on the final turn. He gets a big cheer from the crowd. He's got just a straight stretch and a drop of the pig to go. Dylan Walker in car number 13. The car's already qualified, but he has never won a Pig and Ford race. His dad has won many, in fact, 10 of the last 15 world championships. As he's fighting Car number 13 shifts it down. Dad says, take your time. Huge cheer from the crowd, and only his third year, Dylan Walker wins the second heat race of the day in 4 minutes and 47 seconds. And here comes Damon Wayhanger, who ran a great race as well as Dylan Walker with the win. Damon Wayhanger will have his first or best finish ever. Jake Martin will come in third as he runs a very nice race as well, but he's already earned his way into the championship race. And then Chad Wilson slogging in car number 16. There are only going to be 4 cars in the championship race as Chad hanging on to that pig, which is now a little bit dirty and much harder to hang on to. A vocal pig he has, as he'll drop in to box number 1. And Nick Hurleman, I'm telling you, he is just trying to push his way through this mud as Nick Hurleman will bring his pig, who I believe has fallen asleep on his lap. He is just flat out. Well, he wakes up when he gets out, but Nick Hurleman going to stop a long way from the box because it's easier to run down this track than it is to drive down it, as Nick Hurleman will be the 5th place finisher. And we have a championship race set that has the same drivers that have qualified as what had qualified earlier in the day, because today 2 winners from the previous days, Chris Hurleman and Dylan Walker, have both run. Now there's an interesting question. Will Marty Walker, the dad, who's the defending not the defending, but the multi-time world champion, turn this thing over to Dylan or not? Dylan has just run a pretty rough race, tough race. He certainly has learned in the process, though. I would expect we'll see Marty in the championship race, but either one can drive because they both qualified and the car is qualified. That'll be along with Jake Martin, Chris Hurleman, and Ben Salo. Great day of racing. That much entertainment on this. They may decide to water this track more often because the fans were very much into this race today. Now they're going to run a big stretch of black plastic out there so they can do their ceremony here between races, as they will have a couple presentations to do before we get to the championship race. It's really deceiving as we look back at the winning times, because on the first day it was Chris Hurleman who won in 3 minutes and 27 seconds, and then Marty Walker who won in 3:06. Then in the second day, it was Ben Salo that won in 3:12 and Jake Martin that won in 3:09. So you see all those cars running very, very well. Today, throw those times out the window. Chris Hurleman wins at 4:37 and Dylan Walker wins in 4:47 as they both fight the muddy conditions heading around the track. And so you look at that, and it's anybody's ball game here as we head into the finals with only 4 cars. And let me look back at my sheet to see the last time that we only had 4 cars in the race. That was in 2014. It was Ben Salo, Marty Walker, Chris Hurleman, and Jake Martin. Same 4 we have today, as those 4 ran against each other as a 4-team race. That had been done once in 2010, and that was the last time in this decade that only 4 racers were in the championship race. And so the same ones that were there in 2014, Ben Salo won that one in 2 minutes and 57 seconds. Ben Salo, they're still working on his car. Ken, his dad, is down there working on it, as are a couple other drivers. We've seen that many times over the course of the years. When something happens to a car, all the drivers chip in and try to help them out. And that is no different here today again, as Ben Salo, the defending world champion, down there trying to get things straightened out as he finished 3rd in the race earlier today, as his car had not run very well. So we have 4 drivers set for the championship race. They're going to do some things here between races as they introduce the fair board and hand out some awards down there. we're going to take a break for the Tillamook Ford Motor Company, the sponsor of this year's Tillamook Pig and Ford races. We'll be back after this. I'll hang on just a little bit since my phone died. We'll be back. Sorry, Maria. We'll be back after this 30-second break from the Tillamook Ford Motor Company.
My name is Mike Bentley.
Welcome back to Pig and Ford Racing on FM 95.9 KTIL in Tillamook as the first two heats of Saturday are over and there's only a championship remaining. But my goodness, the story of the day, the muddy conditions. They're going to have pictures and film of this all over the place because it is so unlike what we have normally seen as the Fair Board and County Commissioners are down there on the track being introduced right now, and there'll be some pleasantries given and some congratulations done down there. We knew this was coming, and so in the meantime, I had the opportunity before the race down on the track to grab one of the legends and really one of the stalwarts here of Pig and Ford Racing, and that is Rick Hurleman. As Rick was down there, I caught him and had the opportunity to have a short interview just by way of saying, hey, Rick, come here, talk into my phone. Haven't heard it. I haven't listened to it. Didn't have time for that with all the weird track conditions going on before that. But this was my conversation with Rick Hurleman before today's races.
Play action today, Randy.
There should. Hey, Rick, you come in today, you got a weird situation with the track. Messy as I've seen in a long time. Do you remember it being this way?
Yeah, one time we had it where we had to dump it actually in the low gear. We couldn't stay in high. And especially in the backstretch, it just got so bad that by the time you sucked all the fire out of the tee and you had to dump right into low and come out of the east corner doing like 8 miles an hour. It's pretty weird.
So what's that mean as far as position? You look at the championship race, it'll be coming up right after this interview. Usually 1, 2, and 3, that's your best shot in there. Maybe not the case today.
No, I think 4, 5, and maybe 6 will be the best. And the thing is, the one thing that's weird about this track this year is both the front stretch, the front straight stretch, and the back stretch are the bad spots. Both corners are extremely fast.
Wow.
So it's when you're coming out of that east corner, you're going to hit this mud. It's going to be really interesting for pig exchanges and holding onto the tee.
Well, obviously highly competitive all the time, but also safety is a huge thing when you come to this. Who makes the decision, and have you ever not run when it comes to Saturday?
No, we've never not run. And we made a point to issue to these guys that to keep a really tight hold on that steering wheel, because when you're coming around, 3/4 of a turn on a Model T is from a full right to a full left. So if it whips out to the outside, we have no safety harness. Our leg's the only thing that holds us on. So if they come out and in a real fast spot and they hit a slick spot or a soft spot and it grabs that wheel, there's no bringing it back. So they need to really concentrate on keeping that wheel straight.
So, Rick, you started this game a long time ago. You're about my age, and I think you started driving probably when you were about 16 or
16,
so.
Yeah. 46 years.
How's it changed in the course of that time?
The T's have all caught up to where we were, 25, 30 years ago. They've all caught up. There is no such thing as a bad running T. Very, very few of them. And, they've learned all the tricks of the trade and all that kind of stuff. Even though they're stock, you would never find an old style Model T that would run like these do,
So as you look at how that's changed, we still have dominant racers. And it's, Marty, of course, and Ben Salo have been running this thing now for the last 15 years and winning it almost every year. What separates them from the rest?
It's not the T. It's the driver. And so they're getting great starts. They're not hurrying. They're taking their time with their pig exchange. They're taking time with their crank. They're not missing their crank. They're not missing their spark. They're coming in a controlled environment when they're coming in up, for a pig exchange. And, it's just experience, and the other guys are young and they're trying, and it's really easy if you jump out on your start and you're in the lead, you can pick your spot at the track. You're going to pick how you're coming in. You're going to pick how you're going to exchange. The other guys always have to try to figure out how to pass you, how to gain some ground, and usually that's when they make a mistake.
So nerves, you ran it for many years, and now Chris has run it, your son. You more nervous now than you were back when you ran it yourself?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm always on pins and needles. I think just don't worry about it. A trophy isn't worth getting a broken arm, or a broken leg.
Well, a great piece of entertainment, but also the competitive side of it. There's not much we get to do at our age or a little younger that you still get to compete in. And I know that kids out here and the guys out here doing this, they enjoy every minute of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they definitely enjoy it. They look forward to it. And, it's funny. No matter how long you've been in it, by the third day, you're all butterflies. It's kind of funny with a big race like that, but you're just straight butterflies. I don't care if you're watching it or your kid's running it or whatever. Everybody's full of butterflies. So,
well, this should certainly be interesting with the track conditions the way they are today.
I think this is going to be probably the most entertaining race that you're going to see because it's not going to matter on experience. It's not going to matter it'll matter more on track position. And I can see this easily going 2 and 3 lead changes in one race.
Well, we look forward to it. Thanks for your time, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Randy.
And again, I'd like to thank Rick Hurleman for taking the time right before the races today to stop and talk to me and talk a little bit about Pig & Ford Racing and what that's like from behind the scenes. Most people have seen this now. If you've been around Tillamook County for long, you have been at the Pig & Ford races. It's been featured numerous times on different TV shows, documentaries, things like that. I mean, this is the marquee event at the Tillamook County Fair. They'll end it tonight with a demolition derby, and they have cars down there, 15 cars or so down there on the infield getting ready for the demolition derby tonight, and that's a great event as well. But when people walk away from the Tillamook County Fair, they talk about Pig & Ford Racing. And these guys have been doing it. These families have been doing it for years and years. There's only 10 franchise numbers, and so there can only be 10 cars. Now, some of these guys have a couple cars to use parts off and so forth, which is not easy to find right now. But there's only 10 numbers. You do not go out and just buy one of these and decide you're going to be a Pig & Ford racer. There is it's family. And it is passed down from generation to generation in many cases. And it is a very tight-knit club, and it's a club that has provided entertainment on this fair for over 90 years. Started in 1925, actually the first time. And it is an event that is not matched anywhere. They ran for a little bit of time, a few years, in a modified version out at the rodeo out in the valley. But they ended that, and this is the only real, and this is where they crown the world champion. It's been the world champion since day one because nobody else has picked this up. I don't understand it, but they haven't, and it continues to pack people in. And, boy, today's race, so much different than what we've seen in the past, because in the past it's been dominated by Ben Salo and Marty Walker, and it's all about first one to the box, first one out, and first crank. Ben Salo was the first one out, and yet he left and did not have the lead when he came in after the first lap. His tee was not running as well as it normally does. I look down the track right now, not to get sidetracked, but if you've been here, you know that people pass. They go from the fair area to the infield across a walkway, and that walkway they put plastic down on. And when I walked across to get to the infield, it was still just muddy plastic, and it sunk down about 2 inches before it got solid. Well, now these cars have run over it and over it and over it, and you can no longer see the plastic. It's gone. People that walked out there on plastic, and there is about 1,000 of them, people who walked out on plastic are going to wade back in mud. It is nasty. That may cut down the crowd on the infield for the demolition derby, as they will continue to honor some people down there, and they're looking at the business supporter of the year. The county commissioners down there, and I got to tell you, the fair board is a volunteer board, and it's a volunteer board, not like a lot of volunteers this is a volunteer board that works. And I know many of the volunteers, and what I would tell you is that they work and work hard. And a surprise tonight, they're going to actually honor Kenny Werner, as Ken Werner has opened up, expanded the jerky company and opened a restaurant, and Ken Werner is going to be the honorary recipient of the Volunteer or Business of the Year. And I got to tell you, Kenny Werner and his boys now have just done a spectacular job. If you have not gone down to Werner's and eaten there at their new restaurant, then you're missing something. You got to get out there, and if you have not seen the operation that Werner Jerky has put together, you're missing something too. As Kenny Werner has been honored down on the track before the championship race. There's been 2 heat races so far. There's going to be the championship race coming your way shortly, as they have a couple other things to do down there. And while they do that, we are going to take another commercial break. We really appreciate the fact that Tillamook Ford Motor Company sponsors this event and this broadcast. And so we'll get another commercial in for them. We'll take a 30-second break for the Tillamook Ford Motor Company. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Tillamook County Fair and Pagan Ford Racing, as they are going to now honor, looks like Jerry Underwood. At least that's the Jerry and Sally is Jerry Underwood. Boy, Jerry's the one who really put this fair on the map. Under his direction, he changed everything about this fair, cleaned it up, and it was then named one of the top 10 fairs in the entire nation. And it has many times since then. He set the bar as high as you can set a bar on county fairs, and he did it through hard work and determination. Jerry and his wife are down there, and it's so good to see as Donnie Averill comes out and holds up an honorary plaque that has been given to Jerry down there, as pictures are being taken. Jerry Underwood does as much Tillamook County Fair as any person besides Mildred. And that's saying something. As they go out to the track, oddly enough, the fair board, they have a tarp, actually plastic, stretched all the way across the track. Fair board's in by where the pig boxes are. And all their honorees, they just have come out to the dry spot on the outside. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day right now, but obviously at some point it was not, because this track just turned to mush. Absolute mush. And that was the factor in the first 2 races, as leads changed and people fought back and forth trying to get their car going. If you joined us late, Chris Hurleman won the first race today in 4 minutes and 37 seconds, and Dylan Walker, his first win ever, in 4:47. He's watched his dad win numerous world championships. You look at the history of Pig and Ford racing. Let's go back just in the 2000s, and Marty has won, I believe, 11 or 12 world championships in that time. And so Marty Walker won it in numerous back-to-back, and has been the most dominant racer. And all of a sudden, Ben Salo is a guy who won it last year and certainly can compete. But I'll tell you, Jake Martin has certainly stepped his game up and been able to run with the big boys now, and Chris Hurleman as well. These 2 kids about the same lineage as far as history of driving. Jake Martin has 10 years in. I shouldn't say that. Chris Hurleman has 18 years in, so not exactly the same at all. 13 years for Ben Salo. And then the experience in the crowd, 36 years of driving for Marty Walker. The festivities are over. They're going to clean up that big piece of plastic tarp there that was stretched across. I'm guessing the drivers would love to keep that right around the boxes so they can have some hard ground to run on, or at least something that's not terribly slippery. As they will now fire up only 4 tees. And those 4 tees will be running for the World Championship as they set across the inside of the track. Ben Salo still looking up there on the right front side of his engine, trying to figure out what's going on. And boy, today is a day where you've got to have some power, because if you don't have any power, then you may actually stop. And Ben's still looking at his car, and that's the biggest story right now, as his tee is the one that is qualified. It's not like he can say, hey, can I borrow your tee? Because that's not how it works down there. If your tee can't go, then you don't go. But Chris Hurleman, Marty Walker, Ben Salo, and Jake Martin. Boy, Jake is hungry for a win here. So is Chris Hurleman. Nobody'd be happier than he and his dad if he could pull off a world championship. Doesn't matter what the conditions are. As they continue to tune things up, and I think we're about ready to go as they show some video up on the screen that was put in place 6-7 years ago, I believe. And now they will come out. It looks like Chris Hurleman may be on the inside position, because normally they come out in the order that they have drawn. They drew cow tags on the inside of the track. Chris Hurleman will come out first. Marty Walker will be second. Jake Martin will be third, and Ben Salo, who we said the outside may be the preferred spot to run in today. And so Chris Hurleman has drawn number 1, and he's in the middle of the track, but I think he's going to work his way over to the inside position. Let's see, Chris Hurleman started in 4th in the first race that he won today. And boy, he is in trouble in that inside spot. It's just the wettest spot on the track. Jake Martin's not in a good spot either. Marty Walker, he is going to drive. We expected that, as Marty slides in to spot number 2. Spot number 3 is going to be Jake Martin. And I think Ben Salo got the luckiest draw of all of them in spot number 4, and he'll try to be as wide as possible because he has a right wheel on dry ground. Everybody else is in slop as Ben Salo comes in and sets up. The track looks pretty empty with only 4 cars on it, but that's what we're going to see here today for the championship race. And really, I would say Ben Salo has a 90% chance of winning this thing unless his car's not running well, because he's going to be the one that has the hard ground on the outside. Now, he's got a long way to run across slippery stuff, but he's also the quickest of the drivers on the actually any drivers, let alone the ones on the track in this race. And Ben Salo is going to go back to putting the goggles on. His dad, Ken Salo, is going to stay by the near side fence. Keep an eye on that car. They had trouble with it on day 1. They recovered and put that thing back together, and it ran like a charm yesterday, but they struggled again in the early going in the first race today. Marty Walker, who did not run the race earlier, so he's had to rely on what Dylan had to say about where the fastest spot on the track is. Everybody else has seen this track, and there's certainly something to be said about seeing this track today and trying to figure out where it's going to run the best. Marty wades across there. Jake Martin sets up. Chris Hurleman, his final tune-up is his dad, Rick, over by the boxes on the far side. And we're just about ready for the World Championship race, the thing everybody here has been waiting for. Safety first. But there's a lot of butterflies flying down there in those 4 races, a lot of experience between them all. And really the question's going to be who can leave this box area, as Punk has got the gun out, and there it goes. Punk Dunsworth fires it as Ben Salo, first one to his car all the way out in the 4th spot. Has a little trouble getting it going. Marty Walker leads. Actually started first, but Salo on the outside is going to take the lead. Marty trying to fight to the outside. That was all about position there. Jake Martin goes high. It'll be Salo in first, Jake Martin second, Marty Walker in third. Finally gets to some dry stuff, and Chris Hurleman in that dreaded inside position will be in fourth. Around we go. Ben Salo chased by Jake Martin. Marty Walker in third. Evenly distributed, about 30 or 40 yards between each of them. Ben Salo goes to the inside. Jake Martin starts closing the gap on Ben on the far side. He's moving to the high side. It seems to be dry on the top side of that track in the corner. Cuts it down to about 15 yards. Question will be, do they come in close to the box, or do they stop on the outside where it's dry and run all the way across? I would stop on the outside personally, but I'm not driving. They fishtail. They get to the crossover down there. Jake Martin comes up even. They are side by side. Jake Martin's going to move to the outside and take the lead. Jake Martin takes the dry part of the track. He's going to run all the way across. Marty Walker's going to go inside. It's a long run as Salo and Martin run across the track, cranking it over. Jake Martin going to lead. They go side by side. Jake Martin with the lead in front of Ben Salo. In third spot, it's going to be Marty Walker, but he's sitting and spinning. Can't get it going. Chris Hurleman cranking his teeth, finally gets it turned over. Jake Martin takes about a 30-yard lead. Jake did a great job of moving to the outside, finding some dry ground so he can get a little bit of momentum going. Now he's high on the track on the far side, halfway through the race. He's looking for his very first ever World Championship. Jake Martin now with about a 50-yard lead over Ben Salo. Ben continues to stay down on the inside of that track. Much faster they running right now than they did on the first lap of this race for sure. Jake Martin, he comes around. He's got to have a lot of adrenaline going right now. He stays high on the track. This is where it gets muddy as he enters the straight stretch. He's got one more exchange and one more lap. Fishtailing his way all the way through, throwing mud everywhere. He stays out by the near fence, and he'll run across again. He now has about a 75-yard lead. Jake Martin going to head across the track. A pig jumps out on the far side, but they bounce him back in. Jake Martin comes all the way across. Ben Salo just showing up. Jake turns it over. Cheers from the crowd as Jake Martin leads in first spot. Ben Salo going to crank it up, and he'll leave in second. Marty Walker going to the outside and has to stop and skid as Chris Hurleman goes sliding by. Jake Martin now continues to hold about a 100-yard lead. Jake Martin high. Ben Salo trying to chase him down. Marty Walker and Chris Hurleman. Marty Walker. Chris got to his car first, but Marty will slide to the outside. Jake Martin running a fabulous race in this, the championship race. It's Jake Martin in the mud. Going to slide to the high side. He's got one turn in the straight stretch left to navigate, and then he's got to get a pig across. I would expect he'll come in close to the boxes this time. He goes high. He'll slide around. He comes straight down the middle of the track. No, he's going to keep the same line he's had and been successful. Fishtail's in trouble, but he collects it again. He looks over his left shoulder. Salo's going to try to run to the inside this time. Jake Martin gets it shut down. Jake going to run across the track. Everybody cheering for Jake Martin. He wins it and gets a hug from Punk Dunsworth as we have a new winner in the Tillamook County Fair Pig and Ford races as Jake Martin will finish first. Ben Salo comes in second. Shakes hand, gives a hug to Jake Martin. And in third is going to be Marty Walker. We told you anything could happen today, and the anything that happened is we have a brand new world champion in Jake Martin. Jake Martin, big hugs down there from everybody including Ben Salo, Marty Walker, and Chris Hurleman. As it was a race today, as Jake Martin in his, in his 10th year of racing. He's done this for a decade. He's worked at it hard, and I told you he was running with the big boys, and he did it today as he won the championship, and he did it on one move. He was trailing Ben Salo on the first lap, but in the final turn of the first lap, Jake took the inside route out of the corner, caught Ben, and then passed him, and then quickly went to the outside as they both fishtailed their way down the straight stretch. And Jake Martin was the first one that decided he was going to stay wide instead of getting into the muck near to the boxes. Jake came out to the dry part and stopped there and ran all the way across the track with his pig to dump it off. And Jake being interviewed by Mike Bentley down there, way outside of his comfort zone, I'm sure, at this point. Jake Martin asked me right before the race, he said, hey, do we tape record these at all? And I said, yeah, we do. Just email me. We'll get them to you. He's going to want this one for his record. He'll be listening to this in his pickup for sure, as Jake Martin is a world champion Peg Ford racer. Jake Martin wins at 4 minutes and 2 seconds, and that concludes another great year. And wow, what a wild day of Peg Ford racing today in the mud as Jake Martin comes away victorious. Second, Ben Salo. Third, Marty Walker. And fourth, Chris Hurleman. Congratulations to Jake and to his dad, Jim, who steps in there tonight. Jim never did win a world championship. Jake finally has. He's done a lot of work to get there. Another entertaining day, entertaining year of racing at the Tillamook County Fair. I'd like to thank you for joining us, and thank you, Maria, for taking care of things back at the station. This has been Randy Shield reporting from the grandstands at the Tillamook County Fair.